All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another Microcast from Slamfire Radio. This week, I got my way. We get to talk RC. It was not my intention to talk RC on a gun podcast, but it turns out that lots and lots of the listeners used to be in RC, are currently in RC, want to know about RC. People have been reaching out, and we actually had an email saying, "Hey, why don't you do a microcast on RC?" So Adriel's going to reload in the background while I interview tonight's guest, Greg Lawton. Greg is a prominent member of the RC community in the Maritimes here in Eastern Canada, and he's my new Mo. So what does that mean, Greg? You're my new Mo. So first
I
of
have
all,
no idea.
it's a good thing for me. It's a bad thing for you. First of all, welcome to Slimefire Radio, Greg.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on to talk about one of my favorite topics.
Mine too, even though I've been away for a long time. I was never completely gone. I would always creep Facebook pages and watch YouTube videos and scour eBay for vintage stuff. And so what does that mean? You're my new Mo. So when I get into a hobby, Greg, I go in hard and fast and just dive in with both feet. And I've always done that. And whether it was archery or firearms, now RC, what I do is I find one of the most knowledgeable people in my area in the community and just exhaust them with questions and utilize that resource. And you were highly recommended right off of the hop. You've been called a Jedi and a ninja, so I'm like, that's the guy then. When it comes
Well, that's
to what's
that's
that?
pretty high acclaim. That's high
Yeah.
acclaim. I'm not sure who that came from, but I appreciate it.
Well, we're starting to know some of the same people. Jesse is somebody that I knew, geez, almost 20 years ago when I was living in Fredericton and involved in another hobby that Jesse and I were both involved in. And he put an ad up on one of the Facebook pages that he had a roller for sale. And well, it's kind of exploded since that roller. I went from a roller to a T6, a B74, a B6, then started buying up some vintage stuff and getting ready to hit the track. And I mean, I'm not doing this to bash or hang out in the backyard. I bought race kits and I bought everything, specifically, like when I got into archery to compete. And I found the guy in the province that was the best guy to talk to for coaching and tuning of the equipment. When I got into the sport that we shoot called IPSC, I started asking around, like, who's the man? They're like, Mo's the man. And I was sending him videos of myself practicing reloading and drawing the handgun and all those techniques and having him analyze those videos before I even got out there and fired a bullet. Cost me a bottle of scotch, was well worth it because I was very prepared when I got to the range for the first time. And now my goal is to be very prepared when I get to the track for the first time. I'm way behind the curve. I've been out of the curve. I've been out of the hobby since the 90s. And the last racing I did was carpet oval. So the off-road game, I don't have to tell you, is completely different. Tuning the cars is, I would say, more complicated than carpet oval.
It can be.
I mean,
Carpet oval is a different discipline for sure. That's very precise these days.
yeah.
It's like getting chased by a shark.
Yeah. And so talking with Jesse and talking with the Stefan, the owner of the local track here, they were like, Greg, and so you've been described as someone who kind of like manages the racing scene, or you can correct me on the what exactly your role here is, but I'm told that you're very involved in managing the racing scene in New Brunswick, and also when it comes to tuning, you're the guru. You've been doing it long enough. You know how to tune cars, both on road, off road. You know about batteries and how to finesse the lipo packs and all that good stuff. So
Yep. Oh yeah, for sure. Um, I guess I'll give you a bit of my background for the
yes, let's
listeners,
do
and
that.
so I started twice. I started once back in '89 with a kid I bought used that I thought was awesome. I still remember it. It was a Kyosho Raider. If anybody
Oh
wants to
man,
Google that, it's a
yes,
little plastic car.
yeah. Well,
It
that was
had,
one of the kids in my neighborhood. That was the first kit in my neighborhood was a Kyosho Raider. Then it was a Kyosho Shadow, then a Rampage, and I ended up with a Big Brute. But yeah, Kyosho Raider came out of the hobby shop in Fredericton. I forget, Holly was the owner at the time. I don't know if you ever had any
yep,
dealings with him.
family hobby center. Yep, I don't.
Right. Yeah.
He had a track in behind his house
At the
or
first
in behind the
location.
shop.
Yep.
Yep. So
Hmm.
I raced at that track back
Wow.
in '89. So my first stint was '89 to '94,
Hmm.
and from there, life kind of took its turns, and I got out of the hobby. Between that time, though, I'd raced both indoor, like yourself, in indoor oval. That seemed to be the big thing at the time for indoor carpet racing. And I did also race in off road, and I went to the Canadian Nationals 3 times as a young fella with my kit. It was in Bellevue, Ontario, at a track called Quintrax. Um, and one year I placed second in the off road truck, and I was pretty ecstatic about that.
Well, how many
And it
people would have been
wasn't
in it?
in attendance.
Yeah, back
Um,
then at like the nationals, I just want to compare it to the other like archery nationals and NIPSC nationals and stuff like that. Just always trying to draw comparisons to my current hobby with regards to involvement, participation.
yeah. Now the truck group would have been smaller. It would have been about 50 participants.
Hmm.
But I think the two-wheel drive buggy, which I have one here that I can show, these guys here, there would have been probably 100 to 120 participants in that group.
Yeah,
So
that's
so it
sizable.
would have been, yeah, sizable. It was a 3-day event. I remember staying in a tent up in Bellevue, Ontario.
Awesome.
Yeah. So then after '94, I took a semi-retirement, and then in 2008, my son showed some interest um, when he was about 8 years old, and we bought a small truck. And there was a club in Moncton at the time, and we used to travel about once a month to Moncton to race indoors. Now at that time, the indoor changed from an oval to like a road course.
Okay, like
And
for
so
touring
with
cars, or was it still
you know
pan cars?
it for touring cars. Now he
Okay.
had a little off-road truck that they raced indoors, a little 18th scale, and we would go up there, and then I was just the mechanic at that time, just keeping his car running and tuning it for him. And then I was kind of bored sitting in the pit, so I bought a little car. So he had his truck and I had my little car, and we didn't really have to race each other. We could It was a
Probably
family
for the
outing to
best.
go. Yeah, it was a
Yeah.
family outing. It didn't cause any fights because nobody got run off the road or crashed into.
You took me out, Dad. How dare you?
Yeah, yeah. So we kept an arm's length. So since 2010, I've been racing again, and at that time we had no track in St. John. The club in St. John had dried up in the late '90s, and my son mentioned that he wanted to get a club going again. So we lived near the Lakewood Heights School. I
Hmm.
approached that principal, and we've been set up there on Saturdays ever since. We have a
So
we
is
have
the
our
school
schedule posted on that mrcr.ca website. But we typically went 2 weeks on, 1 week off, 2 weeks on throughout the winter.
okay? And what's the arrangement with the school? Is the track equipment all kept in one of their storage rooms, and you go in and set up and tear down? And
Yeah, that we got a very good deal with them. Uh, they have It's an elementary school, so it's kind of a kid friendly place.
hmm.
So they have like a gym slash auditorium that they have, and there was space to store our track there. So what we have is we bought at, as a club, we bought 4 rolls of carpet. It's specially made for the for this activity.
Of
Your
course.
listeners would probably find that quite a thing, but it's very low pile carpet. It's anti-static. It's very thick. It's made for this purpose.
Does the
So we
carpet
bought four.
last? or eventually does it need to be replaced? Can you wear out your carpet from racing on it?
From use, yes, and at a very big event like in the Canadian Nationals, for instance, I raced up there in on road, and they would get about 3 years out of their carpet before they had to throw it out. And what it is, it doesn't necessarily wear out. Is that the rubber tires leave like a coating on it?
Mm-hmm.
Like you see on pavement where people would
Yep.
corner, a bit of the tire would rub off. Well, it leaves just tremendous black streaks everywhere. So
Mm.
eventually the nap just gets completely covered in rubber.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. So there's two disciplines. So uh, my we started the St. John Club. We race indoors from October to May, and then that leaves an off-road season from May to like early October. So the
And
St. John Club,
this, sorry, yeah, go ahead. You're going there
yeah,
anyway.
the St. John Club doesn't have an off-road track. So the members of our club, we travel either to Fredericton, there's an off-road track there, or to Capellet outside of Moncton, and that's where we travel there. And there's a track in Bathurst, as you know, the Blackfly RC. There's one in PEI in Charlottetown. It's right behind the Great Hobbies building. It's just outside of Charlottetown. It's in Stratford.
Mm-hmm.
And
I was
then
going
there's
there when it was called the East Coast Model Center,
yep,
and you
yeah.
used to
Now
have
it's
to
the
get your
Great.
stuff out of the catalog.
Yeah, I did the same thing. You get a catalog that was about an inch thick.
Yeah.
You'd look through it. They'd have the same price the full year. I don't know that they could do that now, but
No.
that's the way it was done then. Yeah, so
I.
that's
I.
still there. That's probably one of the longest continual clubs in the Maritimes is PEI.
Yeah.
Yep. So then from there, in about let's say 2006, uh, there was an a track association, and that was run by Dan LeBlanc, and it's that Maritime RC Racing banner that I have behind me here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so in about 2006, Dan LeBlanc he was at a Moncton. He retired. From that, his son had gone through the ranks and had gotten to the point that he wanted to do other things. And Dan was running the kind of the area, like almost like a regional manager for all the tracks.
Mm-hmm.
So as he stepped
As
down, I
with
stepped.
regards to like just scheduling, so there's no race conflicts.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's mainly what the association does. So that what my angle is with that website is that we keep the event schedule for the Maritime provinces in New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, and PEI.
Mm-hmm.
And I work in about March. I work with the track owners to come up with a schedule for any big races, so that there's no scheduling conflicts between tracks. And that we kind of have our rules are for the bigger like trophy races or a big event. We want to encourage people from one area to go and support the other area. So we make sure that there's no other event that weekend.
Mm-hmm.
So then, like somebody from Nova Scotia wanted to come to New Brunswick or go to PEI to support a big event, there's no overlap. But then any other time where there's no big race, that they just have their club races.
Okay.
But on the site we have all the races in the Maritime, so you can see our event calendar. Right now it's pretty empty because of the
Yeah.
situation we're in. I'm just about to publish this year's Maritime series race. We did it last year. We kind of brought it back. It's something that Dan had organized, and the clubs had kind of dwindled a bit. But now there's been a resurgence in interest in the hobby. So last year we had a four track race. So we had one race at Blackfly in Bathurst, one in Fredericton, one in Stratford PEI, and one at Capellet. And it was a best 3 out of 4 finishes. So we got out the Excel spreadsheet and kept track of everybody's finishes, and we had a big award ceremony in Capellet, which was the last day of that event.
Very cool.
Yep. So we have that as a Maritime series, the one track everywhere. The intent to that also, for when I was organizing it, was that I wanted to bring like a big race experience
Mm-hmm.
to a smaller club, because maybe those members couldn't or weren't interested in driving, the 4 hours or whatever it is to the next province track, or may not have had the time. So we organized this to bring that big event to them. So I think that was really appreciated by all the local tracks. And last year we had the most rookies join us again. We
Wow.
had 13 brand new rookies, which was the previous years we might have had 4 to 5 new members,
Mm-hmm.
but this time we had, I think it was 13 at the end. We gave out awards, the Rookies of the Year awards.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So, um, the structure of all this, how like like coming from an archery background, I've dealt with provincial sport organizations and national sport organizations for certification for coaches and officials and stuff like that. And then the current sport that I'm in now, we've got a provincial association and a national association, and you have to belong to a gun club, so you pay dues there. Then you have to join your provincial association to shoot the sanctioned events, so you have to pay some dues there, and then you may join another national firearms association and get insurance, and you pay dues there, and then every time you go to a competition, you pay a registration fee. How is the structure in RC racing laid out? Like, do we have, like, I know we've got IFMAR and we've got ROAR, those are like international and national racing associations. Here in Canada, how is our sport governed, or the hobby governed and organized?
Oh, that is a good question. So what we do, you mentioned the Roar organization. That's out of the States, and what they set are the guidelines for racing of all different scales: 8 scale, 10 scale, on road, off road. So we use their rule book as the basis for the racing in our area.
Hmm.
So
But these aren't
the
sanctioned ROAR events. This is
no,
still
these
just like
it
club level, not sanctioned kind of stuff.
yeah, that's right.
Okay.
These would be even our maritime series races. They wouldn't be a Roar sanctioned event.
Right.
These
So then the
are
other difference I'm seeing is like, um, I join a gun club and I utilize their facility. So I pay a membership fee, and that covers the cost of maintaining the facility. With that includes some insurance coverage, and there's hours of operation for the facility. Every facility is run a little differently, and of course, nationally from province to province, it's all very different as well. But I don't get a sense that there are RC car clubs necessarily that, like, okay, I join, I'm a member of Black Fly and I pay a user fee, and then I pay entry fees at races. How where are we getting nickeled and dimed in this hobby,
in
if we are? Like, how's
in
that
this
all work?
hobby. Yeah, that's another good question, and I think it. I'll try to answer it the best I can. So what? So where you get the most restriction or legislation is when is during the on road season, because on road season is indoor, and that's
Hmm.
where you have to rent a facility and you have to buy the carpet, and like there's an inventory to keep.
Hmm.
So I'll use the St. John Club as an example. I registered our club, as a registered nonprofit.
Hmm.
So our club can earn money, but it can't make a profit in excess of. I think we can only hold $20,000 of
Yeah,
holdings.
same as my archery club, same as my gun clubs. Yep.
Yep, yep. So we have that, and what
And
we
then you're
have
bound
take.
to the Nonprofit Act.
Yep, yep. But it also has helped us because we can rent the school as a nonprofit, which
Hmm.
gives us a discount on the rental. It's certainly not free. But we do get a discount because we are a registered nonprofit. So the all the equipment that we own is club owned in that case.
Hmm.
And now what we do is we've decided as a membership is that we don't charge a membership fee for our club,
Hmm.
but what we do charge is $20 a person when you attend one of our club races, just
Okay.
to
What
cover
about the
the.
Saturday when you set up? Is that a club race, or do you just set up and people
Yeah.
come in and practice?
No, each time we meet, it's an organized race. Now
Okay,
it's at
so
a club level where we try to follow the roar format of a we a typical day would be about 2 hours of practice and tuning,
mhm.
and then we would have three qualifying sessions, which are timed qualifying.
And that cost me
Called,
$20
and then you have
to
a
take
final
part
for
in that.
the day. Yep,
Right.
yep.
And how often does that happen?
We do that about 2 times a month
Oh, so
throughout
okay.
from October to May.
Okay.
Yep. And if you don't make it, then you don't pay your $20. And if you do come, then you do pay. And we offer three different kinds of classes of racing. So
Mhm.
we offer 1/10 touring car, which are these things. Oh, I got one sitting here. So this is a touring car. The shell I don't have affixed to it, but you can kind of get the idea of that.
Mm.
They're fairly big. I'll take the shell off of it so people that this is the bottom of it, but you get the idea.
Four-wheel
They're
drive.
yeah, it's a four-wheel drive, carbon fiber, aluminum chassis machine. So that's a 10 scale one. And then we offer a 1/12 pan car, which I don't have with me, but
And that I could get after because
yep,
I'm
1/12.
very familiar with pan cars.
Yeah. And then we offer 1/18. We call it 1/18 open. So that 1/18 scale is quite small. The reason we chose that is because for about $150, you can buy a complete kit, and you can come and join us and race around with that. So you don't break the bank. You get used to the idea of racing, uh, picking tires, tuning the little car, and then you can advance to the more
What's aftermarket
sophisticated cars from
support
there.
like for the 118?
There's a lot of aluminum hop ups.
Really?
So yep. So for 1/18th, we pick a version. It's made by a company called Latrax. It's a
Mm-hmm.
subsidiary of Traxxas. So it's a little Traxxas. Trucks is typically what people pick. They have a little bit bigger tires, and they seem to be able to bump into the boards a little better.
And you
And
can buy tires for them just like any other vehicles we
yep,
run. Neat.
yep, yep. So people are experimenting with putting car tires on the trucks to kind of lower them down. They're
Of
trying different
course.
tread compounds and all that
Of
kind of stuff.
course.
So we left the rules open. You can do whatever you want to them. They just have to abide by the size. You can't put in anything bigger than an eighth. I think our rules are it's a foot long and like 8 inches wide, I think. So that would encompass a truck or a little car or something.
Okay.
And the only rule is that it's a 2-cell lipo battery.
Okay.
So for viewers, I guess there's different grades of batteries, and we specify a particular a
Mm.
particular size, and so that's the only restriction is the battery. So at least everybody is on the same foot that way, and typically everybody's bought the same car. So it's very unusual that it's an open class that you can use anything you want, but yet everybody is gravitated toward the same thing.
Well, there's something to be said for putting the same car in all the drivers' hands, and then it comes
Yep,
down to
yep,
the
skill.
driver. Do you remember back in the 90s? I don't know if it was Trinity that introduced it. It was essentially a pan car, and it was a very, very basic car. And the idea was that it was supposed to be left stock. You were just supposed to take it out of the box, drop in a stock motor, ESC, and there was like it was like what we would call in our game a production division. It was supposed to be a production vehicle, and you ran it the way it came out of the box. And the idea was that you had guys that couldn't win and were bitching and whining and moaning that, well, your car's faster than mine because you've got the better car and the better motor and the better ESC. And it was to kind of placate those guys. Do you remember that division, what that thing was called?
Yep. Yep, that's right. It was I forget what Trinity it was, but you're right. It did that. Early in the St. John Club, we did the exact same model, but with a different kind of car.
Oh, okay.
So we picked a little 1/18th pan car, so it was as simple as you got,
Hmm.
and it was about $100. And we specified the exact motor, the exact gearing, the exact battery. Everything was pretty much identical car to car.
There's something to be said for that because it doesn't become. I mean, the expression back in my day was money buys speed. Okay. But just because you
Yeah,
give me Tiger Woods' golf clubs doesn't make me Tiger Woods. I can dump a ton of money into that T6. If I can't get around the track clean, it means nothing. But one of the appealing aspects to this kind of racing that we're describing, where everybody's essentially in the same car, is um, people aren't going to shy away because they're not dumping tons of money every weekend on the newest whiz bang and
yeah.
widgets, right? So it's cost effective, and then it kind of keeps, at least it keeps the financial playing field equal. Would you agree?
It can, but I have noticed over time that stock classes tend to be more expensive than open.
Oh, now, yeah. Now it's just like we have
Yeah,
a division in our sport called production, and we often say there's nothing production about a production gun. They've taken the manufacturers take the rule book and say, okay, let's build something specific to these rules that is still a purebred race machine, right?
exactly. Yeah,
And stock racing, yeah, if you want to go fast, the car's got to be, you don't have any power, you don't have any battery, so you're overcharging the batteries, you're overtuning the engine, and you're burning stuff out faster, and it's aluminum and titanium everything, just so you can. And then some of those guys, from what I'm learning, are going as fast as mod guys.
yeah, yeah. It's very possible. Now
Hmm.
they don't do it on the straight, but in the infield they have the exact same handling as a modified car. So
Yeah.
they would keep up with it all through the infield and then maybe drop a couple of tenths on the straightaway.
Hmm.
Now the off-road season, we do the same thing. We offer what we call an open class. So or not an open class, but each one of the classes that we run are open electronics.
Hmm.
So for instance, this two-wheel drive buggy, we only specify that it needs a two-cell lipo,
Hmm.
but other than that, it you can use whatever electronics or motor that you want.
Okay.
Now, the great equalizer for off-road is the tracks are slippery as anything. There is absolutely no grip, so you can buy the strongest motor that you can find, and you won't be able to keep the rear end of the car planted. It'll just
Mm.
spin out and fishtail, and if you buy a cheap motor that has no torque to it, it's actually better.
Hmm.
So it's so we have found that in off-road, it's a great equalizer, the slippery surface.
Yeah.
And
You,
people have bought lower price kits to race against higher price kits, and they keep right up because you just can't put that power down, even though the higher price kit may, on a better surface it could probably leave that lower price kit behind, but with that slippery surface it's a great equalizer. So that's worked out great for us in this area,
nice.
as you'll
Okay.
soon find out.
Yeah, not soon enough though. I am chomping at the bit. I took my T6 to the parking lot over here, and it was like, it was a dirt parking lot, but I was like, yeah, you're not made for a dirt parking lot, and little rocks all stuck in the dog bones and stuff like that. And it was just like, no, 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 no. It's not. I don't mind taking the short course truck over there because right now it's just bone stock out of the box. It's more basher than racer. But as I start to, once I put race tires on it, it's not going to see a parking lot again. I mean, that's,
Yeah, yeah.
so.
In my case, that's exactly what I do. I only use these things on a purpose-built track, and I don't use them any other time.
No, no, and and like I said, I got into this to race and be on the track, not to not to go bashing in the backyard. These aren't bashers. So,
Yeah,
and I mean, I
yeah. There,
didn't get to race off road as much as I wanted to when I was a kid. When I was 16, I walked into a hobby shop here in Campbellton. I was living in Dalhousie. I didn't even have a driver's license yet. My mom drove me and my buddy Paul, who he already had a Hornet at the time, and I already had a couple of things too. I had my big brute. Anyway, I drove Paul and I up to this hobby shop in Campbellton, and there was no help wanted sign on the door. But I walk into this place at 16 years old, and I was in there for half an hour, and I got a job. And then a couple of months later, they fired the manager, and here I was, 16 years old, manager of a hobby shop for the summer. And then we started,
Wow.
yeah, yeah, always go big. So I learned a valuable lesson young. And when you live in a place like New Brunswick, where we're so underpopulated, if you want a car club, you better start it. If you're going to wait for somebody else to start it and then just show up and participate, it's not going to happen. You gotta learn to make things happen for yourself if you want them. So here we were, we all had these kits, and we were like, oh man, wouldn't it be great if we had a racetrack? I'm like, well, we better start building one, guys. And that's what we did. We had a friend who was owned some property. It used to be a drive-in movie theater. It was flat. He had some money. He went in there and built us a racetrack. It was huge. It was awful. It was rock, and there was no surface to it at all. But we were racing, clodbusters going around the track with Blackfoots and Big Brutes, but then we had the RC10s and the Team Lozy cars and stuff like that. There was no transponders. There was no concept of, we were completely flying by the seat of our pants. We would run 3 heats. The first heat was 3 laps. The second heat was 2 laps, and the third heat was 1 lap. And we had this long straightaway. So I just put in a 13-turn motor and just fly down the straightaway and leave everybody in the, oh man,
In
they
the
were like,
dust.
yeah. So, but then,
Yeah,
then
that's an
when I,
that's an unusual way to do qualifiers. 1 lap.
yeah, no, that was it. Like it was 3 laps, and then another group of cars would take the track. Then when you go back on the track, it was 2 laps, and another group of cars, and then it was that 1 lap, man. It was, you had to let it all hang out or drive very carefully because there was no, you only had 1 lap to get it done.
Yeah,
So,
that's right. No recovery.
yep, start in front, stay in front was always my strategy. But
Yeah.
we were kids. We didn't have a clue what we were doing. Our fathers were turn marshals, charging batteries with AC/DC chargers in the cars, in the field. And but when I went to Fredericton, then there was no off road. Everybody was racing on road, and they had been racing off road, but it kind of dried up. I couldn't find any off road people, so on road RC
Yeah,
was better than no RC.
yeah, they did have the Family Hobby Center. Actually, that little track he had behind his shop was actually very good as far as an off-road track.
I remember seeing
And
pictures of it, but that's
yeah,
it.
and oddly enough, his layout was almost identical to the layout that was at the Canadian Nationals that I attended.
Oh, interesting.
So when I practiced there, now the Nationals track was much bigger, but it
Hmm.
was almost the exact same layout, just scaled a little bit. You know, instead of, I think his track might have been 80 feet long, and the national track was 120 feet long, but it was the exact same layout. You went, down the end of the track into a sweeper, into a jump. It was exactly the same. So I actually ended up practicing for the nationals at that little track in behind the Fredericton Hobby Shop.
That's so cool.
Yeah,
So rarely
hard
would
to
you ever
believe.
get a chance to do something like that. Like, I mean, when I was in archery, okay, 70 meters is 70 meters. The target's 122 centimeters, or I'm inside and it's 18 meters and a 40 centimeter target, right? It's the same every venue around the world, with the only exception is lighting, and you learn how to accommodate for that. But the current sport that I'm in, every competition you go to is intentionally different. So you cannot practice or, memorize something. But to be able to practice on a scaled down version of the nationals track, that's awesome.
Yeah, yeah, it was unbelievable, really. What we do with that traveling maritime series that we do, one of the advantages of that is that the locals have their, like, a home track
Mm-hmm.
advantage.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So what we encourage to keep it from being a complete home track advantage is that they'll run their layout opposite to their normal. So
Oh,
if they usually go around it clockwise, then for our race we go counterclockwise. Or so
that's
it's like,
brilliant.
so even though it's the same layout, it's a bit fresh because they're not used to braking in a certain way,
So what you're telling me
or
is, I've got to run the track both ways on a regular basis.
yes, yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Don't just get
And
used
and
to.
in our St. John RC Club indoor club,
Mm-hmm.
What we do is, if the day is even, like the date, it's
Mm-hmm.
clockwise. If it's odd, it's counterclockwise. And we
Nice.
change our layout every meeting, so nobody gets used to anything. And so we actually practice running, like learning a track very fast.
Hmm.
That's part of our thing, is
That's
that
brilliant
we're,
because you can't get comfortable. When you go to a new track, you got to figure it out right away.
yeah,
You don't have
yep.
all day
So
to tune the car.
no, so what we typically do is we have tuned our cars to be very general, and then maybe a slight amount of tuning for that day, but
Hmm.
they stay very general. And what we learn is to drive, become a better driver and not rely on the tuning of the car. But
Yeah.
we also learn, a track layout quicker and stuff. So it has helped us when we go to any kind of race, because what'll happen is, a track owner will say, "Okay, guys, today we're going to run it backwards," and we say, "Great, we've been waiting for this day."
Hmm.
And within 3 minutes of practice, we're right back to where we were before.
Nice. So the Maritime RC Racing Series, one one major race per track per season. Is that
Yeah,
okay?
yeah. So typically, PEI leads it. So in June they would have this, like the end of June they would have their race,
Mm-hmm.
and then, Bathurst or Blackfly, Stefan has his race around Canada Day, in around that long weekend is when he likes it. And then Fredericton is at the end of July, and then, Capellet is typically mid to end of August.
Hmm. I kept wanting to
Yes.
get to Black Fly to watch anything, but it kept conflicting with my other hobby. And when this pandemic hit, I was just like, um, I need something to do with my time. I miss building RC cars, and then it just got out of control real fast. Now that I
Yeah,
have the cars, I've got to make using them a priority. So, but the other, I think we'll be racing before I'll be shooting. It looks like the numbers at matches are larger than the car races, and if they said no sporting events, that would mean we're not allowed to have sanctioned shooting events. And so I think that I'm going to definitely probably spend more time on a track than a shooting range this year.
yeah.
So,
At a particular RC event, we would have about 30 people. So I
yeah.
think that'll fit within the new guidelines for
Yeah.
like a smaller event.
Um, yeah, we typically have less than 30 people at a regular club competition, but I don't know if we're still bound to this no sporting event thing. I'm sure
Yeah.
clubs will be doing unsanctioned events, but anyway. Okay, so what what are people racing in the Maritimes? And by that I mean like the listeners may not be aware of the different classes. So we've got electric vehicles, we've got nitro vehicles, we have 1/10 scale vehicles, 1/8 scale vehicles. You've shown some years. I have here a 1/10 scale stadium truck, so it doesn't
Yeah.
look terribly realistic. The two-wheel drive vehicles look a bit more realistic. Not this cab forward stuff. I'm not a fan of this cab forward stuff. What is that about?
That's changed
Man,
since you've left and come back. They've all gone with this cab forward
they're
style, and
ugly, eh?
yeah, the reason for them is they offer more steering, and
Uh,
it's a sign of the times that, early on the tracks were just loose dirt, like,
mhm.
as you described before, they were rocks and,
I heard somebody
uh,
describe the cars that you and I ran in the 80s and 90s as all but undrivable recently.
yeah, yeah, they were. I look back at what I would have driven at that nationals in Ontario, and the thing was just so sloppy. It's hard to believe that it actually drove straight.
I can't wait to get. I'm restoring a vintage RC10, and the JRX Pro SE buggy that arrived from eBay today is like ready for electronics. Actually, it just needs a receiver and a speed control. It still has a motor bolted into it. I mean, obviously, I'm going to take everything apart and clean and polish the pins and make sure everything is, you know what I mean? Especially the transmission is going to need some attention, but it's ready to go. There are no parts missing. There was a hub carrier and an axle missing on the RC10, and of course, I'm upgrading it and dying that. Anyway, I can't wait to get them both running with vintage electronics and do some laps with them and then throw down the B6D to
and see
see,
the difference.
yeah, compare and contrast from. And I'd also like to drop a lipo brushless system in one of them. Like the RC10, for example, came with the original 6-gear transmission, which I immediately threw in the garbage and ordered, found a stealth transmission that hadn't even been built yet, like new in the package, old stock stealth transmission that I'm going to put onto it. So I
Yeah,
don't know
yeah,
that the 6-speed wasn't worth using when it was new, so it's certainly not worth hooking up to a lipo system. Anyway, what are we racing today? What's out there?
yep. So for a summer series, so if like what we'd be doing starting probably June, July-ish, uh, basically everything's all electric now. The nitro seemed to come in like the mid 90s and kind of ended early 2000s with the advent of lipo. Once lipo came out, that changed the whole
Really? What about the world
industry.
level? Is Nitro like dead all the way up the chain?
No, Nitro 1/8 buggy has a huge following
Okay, so that's where it's
in
at.
every place but the Maritimes.
Hmm.
Like in Quebec, for instance,
Mm-hmm.
they have very large nitro races. The whole foundation of of the race would be, they call it the Quebec Classic. If anybody wants to Google that, it's a 3-day race. It's mainly nitro 1/8 buggy.
Mm-hmm.
Would be the biggest class, probably 150 to 200 competitors would go to that.
So
And
why is that
then
not a thing here?
I what it seems to be is it's not a grab and go type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
With an actual motor, there's more of a tuning
Mm-hmm.
that you have to do with it. It's kind of weather dependent. If
Are
it's
those
humid
engines
out,
finicky, or are they better than they were in
no,
our day?
no, they're still finicky. So they
Okay.
run rich, they run lean. You got to tune it every time you run it.
Flame out.
Uh, Flame out. Uh, One thing that's kind of holding it back as well is that the shipping of their nitro fuels is,
Oh yeah.
it all has to be ground based shipping now, and
Yeah.
if
Even
you actually,
when I was flying in Fredericton, I used to get my fuel out of a guy's basement. This old, rich, eccentric guy, hoarder guy, who sold just specifically RC airplane stuff out of his home, and that's we'll go see old
hmm,
Carl to get your fuel because there was no way, especially when you're a student loan, you're a student living on a student loan and a smoker. Yeah, you didn't have a lot of money left over, especially if you went out on a Friday night to buy a jug of fuel. But I still managed to burn more fuel in my first year than some guys burned in 3 years.
yeah, probably,
I lived at that field, but yeah, so that's for sure a barrier is access to fuel.
yeah, that's what
When you've got
it looks like it's come down to, is the access to fuel, and then just people don't seem to want to spend the time to tune them.
okay,
They also have a bit of a conflict, I would say, between, like with electric, the races are about 7 minutes
hmm
that you run. Where a nitro, they'll run about a half hour. And for the
oh,
driver,
we're
that's
not,
fun because
yeah,
they get to drive a half hour and they get to refuel and stuff. But for the corner marshal, has to stand there a half hour and get the dirt thrown at them. It's not as
yeah,
fun.
and I could see you're not sharing. I could see nitro specific facilities because who wants to wait around all day to run your 10 scale buggy when heats are
Yeah,
30 minutes long?
yeah.
You'd be mentally exhausted coming off that stand after 30 minutes.
Oh yes,
You're not
yeah. You would
relaxed
be.
up there.
No,
Huh.
no. You'd be kind of on edge, trying to keep ahead of the other fella at the same time as trying to keep track of your fuel.
Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts. Okay, so we're
Yeah.
not doing that here. What are we doing? We're doing 1/8 scale just the same though. I've seen these electric 1/8 scale buggies. Blew my mind. An electric 8 scale, what? And then of course they were like, yes, it's
Yeah.
called lipos and brushless.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. The rules for those are where the 1/10 scale they use 2-cell lipo.
hmm
So a 2-cell lipo is about 8 volt.
hmm
Uh, a 1/8 buggy uses 4-cell, so they're up to about 14 to 16 volt,
So
fully charged.
how popular is 1/8 scale 4-wheel drive buggy style car in the Maritimes? Is that our what is our premier class? Two questions. How
Uh,
popular is the 1/8 scale and what's our premier class?
the 1/8 scale buggy is probably the third most popular
Okay.
class that we have. A typical race would have 12 people in it.
Okay. Is that enough for two
Uh,
mains or is that just one main?
with 12, they might break that into two, where you would have a B main with probably 6 people in it, and the top two would bump up into an A, which would have like a total of 8, I would
Okay.
think.
So when this is done, I'll get you to explain the format and what these words mean because the listeners
Yep.
may not have a clue what A main and B main and all that means.
Yep.
We have analogies that we can compare to shooting sports, but we'll come back to that. So um,
Yep.
8 scale is about third popular. What else do we
Yep.
have?
The first would be these two-wheel drive buggies that I showed.
Okay, that's still the
For
hotness.
Yeah, that's still the hotness. At a particular race day, there'd be about 18 of them.
And isn't that the
So that
hardest one to learn to drive and tune?
it is, yes. Which is the almost like a contradiction,
Right.
isn't it?
Is it
It's like
because
the most,
it's
but it's
affordable?
also the cheapest.
There
It's
you go.
also the cheapest. Yep. It's that it's the most affordable. You can get a kit like that for probably about $300. Like if
I
you
mean,
wanted to get an RTR kit.
production is like one of the more competitive divisions in shooting, and that's supposed to be like the cheapest one.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah, Adriel, you're right. It's supposed to
Yeah.
well, but then again, we got MMPs and Glocks, and then we've got Tanfoglios and CZs, right? So, what would be an entry level 2-wheel drive car that would still be on the track, or is
Um,
everybody just like Losi associated? That's it. There's nothing else.
Well, probably the lowest price entry level car is Associated still sells the B4
Okay,
in an RTR box, and I think it's
really,
about $350. Yeah, and it comes complete with a radio to control it and the motor to
man, I'm
drive it,
glad
and
I
it
didn't
comes with
know
a
about
battery.
that.
Yeah. Oh, you got the new Associated
Yeah,
B6, so you
I
don't
went
need a
straight.
B4.
No, exactly. I went straight to the B6.2D.
Yeah, but
Um,
no, they do have an RTR version of the B4. Now the B4 started its life in 2006, and
mhm,
I think it was discontinued around 2014 as a kit on its own. But
mhm,
because there's just so much part support with such a long run
mhm.
that they offer it as an RTR version.
Neat.
So
That's
there's
kind of a
parts for that
cool.
car everywhere.
It's a cool, affordable way for somebody to get in. And the
Yep.
other way would be like the short course truck that I got. I mean, that one was to my door 580, and it's all there. I mean, you wouldn't want to race on those tires, but it's all there. You know, if
Yep.
you're on a budget and you just want to go bang out some laps with the boys, just change the tires and go.
Wait,
Yep.
five
Yep.
580 is bang around a couple laps with the boys' money.
Yeah, that's your MNP. Go take your
Woo!
black badge with MNP
Woo!
money. What's the
That's
difference,
that's
Adriel?
the starting, right? You got to go
Right?
up from there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Change the
Yeah.
tires out.
Tire this, and I'm learning quickly, Adriel, that this game is all about tires, tire prep, the compound, the tread pattern, like tire
What does a
science.
set of tires cost?
Greg, what's
So
tires cost?
you can buy just the rubber part of the tires for about $25. Now you need to put those tires on rims, which are another $10, and they're not air inflated. They're foam inside them, and those are probably another $15. So a set of tires is a solid $40 to $45.
Adriel, one guy told me the other day that his tire budget last year, and my God, I better close the door in case she's listening.
Yeah.
His tire budget for the season for, I guess he's racing multiple vehicles in multiple classes. His tire budget was between $500 and $600 for the season. Now, before you're like, what? You're spending $500 on tires? What do we spend a year on ammo? We spend
less if you make it yourself.
Bullshit. I make it myself. If you shoot multiple disciplines, if you shoot 40, if you shoot 9, if you shoot 3-gun, you're spending more than $500 a year on ammo.
Yes.
Tires in the RC world is ammo in our world. You buy the gun, you own the gun. You buy the car, you buy the car, you own the car. The gun wears out eventually. The car wears out eventually. The more you use it, the harder you are on it, the faster it's going to wear out. But every time you pull the trigger, you spend money on bullets. Well, every time we go to a race, we're going through tires. So, and Greg, batteries. Well, if you overcharge them to get the most out of them, you're going to wear them out, right?
The batteries actually will last quite well. You can get 2 to 3 years out of a set of batteries.
Oh, what was the other thing you said? Tires and what else? What else is our expendable, our disposable?
The consumables?
Yes, thank you, consumables.
The consumables in it are definitely tires. Motors, they're the next consumable. You'll be lucky to get. It depends on how much maintenance that you can do, but you'll be lucky to get a year out of a motor.
Wow. Oh, I'm gonna stop running.
Now, some people are better at maintaining them. Like,
well, back in the day, we used to have dynos, and we used to true the armatures and balance them and turn them, and oh my God, it was between NiCads and brushed motors in the 80s and 90s. It was crazy the amount of stuff. I saw somebody sent me a picture the other day. Is a gun buddy of mine in Ontario who, like me, he during the pandemic decided to get back into RC, and he still had all of his stuff, like all this old vintage associated stuff, RC10, RC10T, and he had turned an RC10 into a T and then back into a 10. Anyway, he's got one of the Joel Johnson, Magic Johnson armature balancers that he dug out of a closet somewhere. Sent me a picture of it. Like, go straight to eBay with that, man.
Yep. It might be his retirement there. Actually, the older stuff, I think about 8 years ago, you could get a lot of money for older stuff, but I don't think that market is still there. From what I can
it's dying off. Thank God, because I'm gonna need parts.
I'm not in that. I'm just an observer of the prices and things. Mm-hmm. But the vintage RC stuff, where maybe that RC10, if it was new, it would be like $1,000. But now
they're about half now. Unless it's in a factory sealed box, those are still going for mad money, $1,000, $1,200.
Yeah. No, but even the open box stuff was $1,000 if it was in good condition. It was unbelievable. They're probably 5 to 8 years ago.
Wow. The Kinwald Classic or Kinwald Race or whatever, they do a vintage class at that. I saw on YouTube the other day. Okay, so let's keep going. So we got the two-wheel drive, which is the most popular but the hardest to do, so that makes sense. What else do we got?
Place. The second is the four-wheel drive short course.
Four-wheel drive short course.
Yep, I know.
Who's making the four-wheel drive short course?
Associated doesn't make one, which is probably why you didn't notice it on their site.
Right, that's why I don't have one. What the hell?
No, they don't. It is a class that is probably just regionally popular. In the Maritimes, that seems to be a regionally popular class. In other parts of the world, I don't think that four-wheel short course is as popular.
Like, is it awesome? Is it the easiest thing in the world to drive? What's the appeal?
The appeal is that they're full-body trucks. So the short course has a body that covers the wheels, so you get a little bit of fender rubbing in that class.
Okay.
Or that the buggy that I showed in that short course that you showed, they're open wheels, so you can't get them close to each other though. They'll intertwine and flip each other and stuff. But the four-wheel drive is you can use a little bit of the chrome wedge to get around the corner at times. And a company called Traxxas made them very, very popular.
Traxxas is
Yep.
doing it. I'm
Yep.
still from the time when Traxxas was a toy.
So am I.
Okay. Yeah, right. So
But having said that, I raced a Traxxas 4-wheel drive short course for 3 years and won a lot of races with it. With this
really,
little plastic truck. Now, part
that's
of
the
the
thing.
fun,
They seem plasticky.
it was. There's no aluminum on that. It was completely plastic. Now, what I found from racing it, and people found it incredible that I chose that to race, because there's like it'd be like driving a K car against a Lamborghini. There's just absolutely no comparison.
Hmm.
But what I found is that if you kept it, like if you were right on top of maintenance, you could actually do pretty well with it.
Interesting.
And I downloaded some software called RC Crew Chief. It's a fella out of Ottawa that makes the software,
Mm-hmm.
and it helps you tune cars. But one option it has in that software is it has shock tuning. So you can basically adjust the shocks on the arm of the car. I'll just show the picture, I guess. You can, in the software, you can adjust where the shock in the front here,
Mm-hmm.
where it attaches to this arm,
Mm-hmm.
and also where it attaches to the top of the shock tower. And you can change the oil in it, so you can change like how the shock compresses and how quickly it'll rebound and stuff. So I took that software and I applied it to the toy Traxxas Slash, and it was stuck to the track. It was unbelievable.
Really?
Yeah.
Again,
Yeah.
right? You can give me Tiger Woods' golf clubs. It doesn't make me Tiger Woods. So
Yeah.
if you know how to tune and you know how to drive, you know how to prep your tires.
Yep. Now,
This is
its biggest weakness that I found with racing it is that if the wind came up, you were beat, because it was about half the weight of anything else, because it's made of plastic.
right, and it's got a kite parachute for a body.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if the wind came up, it was a struggle. But if it was a nice mild day, the lightness of the vehicle was actually an advantage, because it could accelerate in an instant.
Wow. Oh, that's true. Yeah. Okay. So first is two-wheel drive buggy. Second is 4x4 short course. What's third most popular?
Third would be the 1/8 buggy, and that would be very, very similar to that 2-wheel drive
Man,
short
did
course
I
truck.
mention I bought a stadium truck, Greg? And it was the first one I bought. I'm not feeling a lot of stadium truck love. We're getting down the list here.
Now this is the new thing of stadium trucks. So just hold up your truck for a second. This is a new class to this year's series.
Oh, really?
We tried it. Yep, we tried it out last year. Now these little trucks were insanely popular in the 90s
Yeah,
and
when we
probably early
started,
2000s.
yeah, when the JRX-T came out and then the RC10T. Well, let's face it, we were putting big wheels on our cars before the manufacturers did it. And they were like,
Yeah.
okay, we need some longer. When the JRX-T came out, it had different body mounts to accommodate the truck body and truck wheels, and that was it. It was a JRX2 with JRX2 suspension arms. It was a couple of years before, and maybe Associated did it first. When the RC10T came out, it was an RC10 with longer arms and bigger wheels. And at the time, I was like, I want those arms on my car. And I figured it was going to give the car the ultimate handling. You look how long the arms are now; they're probably as long on the car now. They probably are as long as what they were on the trucks back then.
Oh yes, yeah, for sure. Especially in RC10, they had little stubby arms. About
the first ones, yeah, it was
long.
ridiculous. So okay, so the
but so that is a brand new class. We tried it last year,
mm-hmm.
and it got really good feedback. They're very easy to drive.
That's why I bought it.
So it's a great class of vehicle for new people to start out.
Stefan described it as it's like a buggy with training wheels.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it that, but you can certainly. It is not as affected by bumps in the track. It'll just drive through rough stuff a lot easier.
Right.
Where these little dune buggy style, since they're smaller tires, that when the going gets tough, they get slowed down.
They get thrown around.
Yeah.
Okay.
There has been a huge uptake in those stadium trucks. I
Nice.
know of at least 7 to 8 people who bought them over the winter time that are eager to get to the track.
Nice. Yourself?
So I
Are
think
you?
no, I've actually there's a group of us that have gotten together, and we're not going to get into that class. We're going to let like newer racers kind of get into that first.
Okay.
So I don't know that it's going to be everywhere, but at least the people I've talked to. So I won't be in that one myself.
Okay.
I'll stick with
Gonna
my
give the
tried and
newbies a
true is.
chance to podium for a while.
Oh, there's going to be competition in there. Because anyone who's bought one has messaged said, look what I got. So it's going to be a tough go.
Perfect.
I'm
Okay.
just going to be helping tuning. So if you need
Great.
tuning help, let me know. But so I'm just going to be a mechanic this round. But
So
I think that's going to be a full class. It's going to be 8-10 racers right off the bat.
Okay, right on. So fourth would be?
So I would say let's ignore the stadium for now. The least popular currently is an 8th scale, what they call a truggy.
Okay.
And it is it's a mammoth machine. It's probably 2 feet wide, like width and
Jesus.
wheelbase, and about 3 feet long in length of the wheelbase. They're massive machines, and what holds them back from popularity, I think, is cost.
Okay. It almost
When you
sounds like
when you buy a set of tires, you're into like $80 for some tires.
wow.
Yeah, you're almost buying tires for your Tercel with that.
Jesus. Now I know it's a hard question to answer. Like when people ask me, how long does something last? I usually say, well, how long do tires last? The point of that comment being they last, the length of time they last is determined by how much you use them. But if you're racing and practicing a lot, how long does a set of race tires last?
You can get up to 2 race days, and race day would be some practice, and those 3 qualifiers of 5 minutes each, and
Oh my God.
like an
I'm gonna
8-minute
spend
final.
I'm gonna spend $1,000 on rubber this year. I can't
Yeah.
find M4s.
Now I only spend money on the 2-wheel drive buggy. I also race the 4-wheel drive short course, and then with that I only get 2 sets of tires a year.
So
I get 3 race days out of a set.
So stadium is gonna be my main focus this year. I thought 2-wheel drive short course would be my second. I know 4-wheel drive buggy is not really a thing here so much all around. But
Yeah,
I mean,
the 4-wheel drive buggy, that is a class that they started in Bathurst because they race indoor.
mhm.
And for a smaller indoor track, it's probably the quickest class that you can, because 4-wheel drive for one, and it's 1/10 scale, so it's quite small and nimble. So they're having a great time with them indoors in Bathurst with them.
So
And
maybe
it at the world stage, it's a very popular class. It's just not something that we have.
okay.
So it boils down to four 2-wheel drive classes and 4 4-wheel drive classes is what we have. So the 2-wheel drive classes is that 2-wheel drive buggy, that stadium truck, that short course truck, and I think those are them. I think we got 2-wheel drive buggies, 2-wheel drive short course, 2-wheel drive stadium. Maybe it's only 6 classes that we're going to offer this year.
But
And then for
two-wheel
4-wheel drive,
two-wheel drive short course is a thing.
yep. Oh yeah,
Okay.
it's a thing. It would be tied with 1/8 buggy, maybe slightly more popular.
Okay, because I got a
I
pile
think
of tires
we would
coming.
get. Yep. Oh yeah, that's a very popular class too. It's not as popular as the 4-wheel drive short course.
Okay, so
Slightly more than the 1/8 buggy.
So the 3 I'll do this summer will be my stadium truck, my short course truck, and my 2-wheel drive buggy. If we do 4-wheel drive club races at Blackfly, great. Otherwise, I'll
Yep.
keep my 4-wheel drive for indoor,
Yep.
which seems
You'll be
ridiculous. A 4-wheel drive car driving around carpet. Like, I want a loose, dirty track for my 4-wheel drive. Like I want off-road racing to be off-road racing, not like I see these off-road tracks in the US and they just look like carpet made out of clay. Like, it's hard packed and smooth and no dust. I'm like, but
yeah.
you're driving
It's
an
certainly a
on-road car
different
with big
thing.
shocks. Yeah.
Yeah, it's certainly a
So
different thing. Yeah, it has evolved, I guess, from the loose, loamy tracks of like the late '80s to
yeah, for
right
sure.
now. You're describing this hard packed clay, molded, almost like a little stadium indoor motocross type of thing, where there's
Exactly.
these moguls and double jumps and things like that. But it's all, there's no mud flying in that.
No.
And then the tire prep in that is that they're actually putting compound on the tires to soften them, and they grind them in certain ways to heat them, put them through a few heat cycles to make them really sticky, and it's
Yeah,
unbelievable what they
it
do.
is. It's like it's tire voodoo. Seeing some videos on there of cooking in the sauce, and they got cordless drills and one tire at a time and sanding. That's like you're taking a brand new tire to the package and hitting it with sandpaper. I'm like, what? There's no tread on it to begin with. What are you doing? And, oh, we're just opening up the cells. Anyway, that's a whole other thing I've got to learn is the tire prep game. Because it's so important, right? I realize it's all about tires, but okay. So walk me through my first race day. Like, I've been practicing at Blackfly. I can get around the track, but now I'm driving a Capilet for my first race. What's going on?
Yep. So when you first arrive at Capilet, the track will be there.
Oh,
You'll
that's
see the
good.
drivers. Yeah, you'll see the driver stand there, but there won't be like any assigned pit area.
Okay.
So first step is you kind of want to get a good pit area that you can get to the driver stand easy.
Now, am I
And
bringing a
also,
tent and a table, or is
yep,
there
you're
what's
bringing you're going to Walmart and you're getting a gazebo,
got it?
and you're getting a folding table
Got it.
and a 50-foot extension cord.
Got it.
And
This is more, hold on, Adriel, there's more gear to go to play with these little cars than there is to go to a 3-gun match. I got to bring a tent and a table and
yeah.
anyway.
All right. Or have a good friend. One or the other.
I told the boys, I said, I've got the truck, so I'll just stop at Stefan's and we'll throw all the tables and tents and stuff in the truck and carpool.
Yep, that's right. So for the St. John guys, we all travel together and we all pit in the same tent. So we only have one tent to share between us, but we have 3 tables and maybe 4 depending on who goes. So another thing that we do is we kind of see which way the wind is blowing, and we put our pit where the dirt is not going.
Experience, oh wise one. Yeah,
you might see this real choice piece of real estate to set up on, but if you don't check the wind, you're going to be covered in dirt all day. So
do you get this set up? So you do this, you stake out this prime real estate by being the first one at the track?
Yeah.
So
we arrive
get there early.
We get there around 9:00. The event goes from 9:00 until about 6:00. So it's a day.
9:00 is an early start time when you're driving from Campbellton.
Yeah, it can be. Yeah, Stefan gets there, but the actual event doesn't start till about 11. Between 9 and 11 is your practice time.
Right. Okay.
Yep. So, and then we also try to figure out which way the cords have been run.
Okay.
So we try to get in on the power early, rather than to be at the end of the 200 feet of extension cord. We want to be
not a lot of current left.
First 50 feet.
Yeah. Okay. So get there early and stake out a wind-free pit area.
Yep. So that's step 1. Then step 2, assuming you get everything all set up.
Are we pre-registered or do we just show up? Because in my competitions now, you do everything electronically online. You register, you register for you pay, everything is done electronically ahead of time. caches for
No,
hobos and the match director
no,
knows who's coming.
no. At this time, you're just showing up.
Okay, so
So
we don't.
Capellet is run by George Thompson, and
Yep.
George has no idea who's going to show up that day.
Wow.
Now he has a face. One thing that we are is connected. So
Mhm.
pretty much everybody knows who's going to go to the event
Right. Okay.
because there would be a Facebook group for this. People would have chatted it up. We
Mhm.
have our schedule on the MRCR site. That it's months in advance that you know when it's going to be. So we pretty much know who's going to go there.
Okay.
Yep. So, but you're going to show up. You're going to get some practice in. Practice, charge a few packs. Practice, get used to the track layout, and it could have rained. That will make the track have more grip. It might have been a drought for the last 2 weeks. It might be really slippery or dry. So you're getting the feel of the lay of the land there.
So we could run Capellet one weekend and it'd be, high traction. We could go back another weekend and it'd be loose because
Yeah,
it's subject to
exactly.
weather. Okay.
Yeah,
Is he
and tips.
does he water it at all throughout the day, or the track is what it is? Deal with it.
Attempts will be made. Now he has put in a big water barrel that he'll fill before the event, and then during the event he'll try to water a couple of times. But that is not a guarantee.
Okay.
It's a best effort. But the thing that will be guaranteed is by the last race of the day, with all the vehicles that are on it, there'll be a lot of potholes. So you keep that in mind on your setup for your vehicle.
Okay.
You want a vehicle that can run on very loose soil that's full of potholes. So
Hmm.
I set my setup style is I set up for the last race and deal with it the rest of the time because
Yeah.
as
Perfect.
the
Yep.
as the day progresses, the
Your
event
car is
comes to
getting
me.
better.
Yeah,
Perfect. Brilliant. That's
yeah.
experience speaking.
As other cars are dropping off, like slowing down because of the potholes or the slipperiness or whatever, my cars are either staying the same speed or they're actually going faster because
Okay.
they're
I want to
because
get into
I'm just getting used to the surface, and so the game actually comes to me as I go, and
perfect.
it'll come to you as well because now that you know the
Yep.
setup for the end, not the beginning.
Now,
Um,
yeah, yeah. Well, you know what it's going to be like at the end of the day to do that. So noted. I'm squirreling all this away. So
yeah,
practice. What's the format like for practice? I've arrived. I've got my pit space. My batteries are charged. My car is ready. I've introduced myself to George. The track is open for practice. I just throw the car down in the corner
yeah.
somewhere and walk up to the stand, and everybody is it's a free for all, just banging out laps.
Unfortunately, it is. Now, what the race directors will do on any of these tracks, but George in particular, he'll turn on the lap counter into practice mode.
Hmm.
So as your car crosses the start finish line, it'll tell you your lap time, like it'll
Hmm.
read it out over the PA.
Really?
So as you're driving around, you'll hear 40 seconds, 42 seconds, 45 seconds, or whatever. So you can have an idea of how fast you're going, and if you're trying a different tire or something, you'll know that the effect. You'll also know the effect if there's somebody else practicing in your class because you can hear them go by. And if you hear 38s and you're at 42s, then
No,
you
it's
got
mental
you
game
got
stuff.
some
I'm not
work
worried
to
about
do.
that. Yeah.
You got some work to do. Or you can do the same, and if you get a blistering lap of a 38, that's typically when I leave the stand and I see, oh, I got her.
Yeah, my work here is done, kids. I'll be in the
And
pits having a cigar.
let them stew on that for a bit.
So that's what you
Yep.
mean
So
by
that's open.
that's what you mean by unfortunately it's open practice because
Yep.
yeah. Now what about
It's a
marshals during practice? If you flip, you got to go get it yourself.
Yeah, it's best efforts. If sometimes somebody will be there because their friend is on the stand and they're practicing a certain thing,
Hmm.
like a jump or a corner or something, and there just happens to be some people walking around. They'll get you. If not, you have to get down. So it
Okay.
can be cumbersome.
Hmm.
The unfortunate part of open practice is that one of these 1/8 buggies with the 4-cell lipo in it could be on the same track as one of the two-wheel drive buggies, the little 10 scale ones.
Oh, a
So
new guy slowing everything down.
well, the the 8 scale buggies are like 15 pounds. They
Mhm.
can just drive
Crush
through
you.
some of these other ones. Yeah. So it has happened that the larger cars have broken the smaller ones just in practice.
Hmm.
So just be observant when you throw your car down. Don't throw it in front of one of the great big ones. Just off to the side, let them go by, and then follow them. That's what I do, and there's usually no problems.
Okay. Um. All right.
The
So what's
stand will
next?
only hold maybe 10 people, so that's the limiting factor to how many cars are out in practice.
Okay. So
It's just physical people you can't put any more on the stand.
all
Maybe
right.
12 at the most.
So what about the etiquette here? How is it handled? Like first come first serve. Or do I just look for a spot and get up there? Somebody was waiting to go before me and I cut them off. Like how is that handled?
There seems to be an informal line. It doesn't happen that there is the line, but there is a informal line that if somebody's waiting, they get to go. People come and go all the time. They're not up there for like 20 minutes. Uh,
Gotcha.
so there's I've never had any problem with practice time. So
Okay.
after practice, you get about an hour and a half. George calls drivers meeting. In there, they discuss the rules of the day. After you race, you put your car down and then you go out and marshal. What marshaling is you go and flip cars over for the race that's happening. So when you go to race, there'll be people standing around in specified areas on the track,
Hmm.
and they'll flip. If a car flips over in that area, they'll go get it, flip it right side up. And then after you're done racing, then you become the marshal for the next race, and then a new set of people will drive cars, and then your job is to flip cars.
So how
And
much
then
time do I have between getting off the stand, getting my car over and my pack back on charge, and like do I put my
you
battery on charge and go to the Marshall or what's
Do the marshals have to have the cloud like on Mario Kart and then use a fishing rod to go pick up the cart and then put it back onto the track? I think is the question I've
I
got.
wish they were that attentive. I
Uh,
really do. So, sometimes the marshalling can be very tough because they'll get caught up in watching the race,
oh
which is somebody could flip right in front of a marshal. In the meantime, the marshal's looking at, oh, look how fast they're going over there, and they might not notice it. So
I remember that happening to me when I was a kid and got yelled at bad. My Trevor, open your effing eyes. I I remember that.
yeah.
Still to this day, getting yelled at by Boo.
Yeah.
Uh,
So in that drivers meeting, George will say, watch your corner, don't watch the race for the marshal. So if you're the marshal for like the best race of the day, it's like the worst time to marshal because you really wanted to watch that, and maybe it's going to be really fast or really good, or that there's going to be a good competition.
yeah.
Yep. So the drivers meeting will come and go. Uh, Everything is computerized for lap counting and scheduling of the races. So George will press the button, out will come the heat sheets. He'll attach the heat sheets to the stand. Everybody goes and checks to see when they're racing. So typically we race them in order of smallest vehicles to largest, and then kind of broken into groups of 10. So if there's two groups of like those small little two-wheel drive buggies, you might be in the first group or the second group.
So this
Um,
heat, how many heats did we do?
There'll be
So
three qualifiers, and
so
the
three
qualifiers,
qualifiers.
yeah, and what you're qualifying for is to be in the fastest group of drivers. So
Okay, and
as an
that's where the
example, like,
term A main comes in.
yeah, so for example, if there's 20 people and you can only have two groups of 10, they'll put the fastest group of 10 together, and then the next fastest group of 10. And the fastest group will be the A main. The next fastest will be the B main.
Okay, so if you
And
win the
then,
B main, you're the tallest midget.
yep.
Okay.
Plus, you get to bump. We call it the term is bump. You get to go from the B main into the A main
How do you manage that?
as your prize. That's your prize for the B main. You
Oh,
get to go
so
in the A main.
how do they determine who gets to leave the B and go to the A?
Oh, it's the winner of the B
Oh,
group.
you race in the B main, and if you win, you get bumped into the A.
Yeah.
Oh, you're
Yep.
not the tallest midget. You're now What are you then? You've made it
You're
to
the
the.
shortest giant.
Yeah, you go. Perfect.
No,
Nice.
and in some cases, there's been 3 groups, like a C, a B, and an A. And I've seen people win the C, get into the B, win the B, and then get into the A, and place third, I think. Yeah.
Decent.
Yeah. So it's kind of like a little bit of a second chance. If you've had a bad qualifying session and you do win the B, you can still get into the big race of the day where all the fastest cars together are.
I do remember some of this because when I was racing oval in Fredericton, we used to travel to Portland, Maine. And there was a Vietnam vet there in a wheelchair who had this amazing facility. It was an indoor banked carpet oval for pan cars, a hobby shop, and a canteen like what you'd find in a hockey rink. Hot dogs, fries, poutines. Well, poutines because it was Portland, Maine, but you know what I mean. Tons of pit space. It was a really, really cool facility. And I remember going down there probably 3 times, and we'd get down there Friday night and they would have like club racing on Friday night and give out ribbons or whatever. I won something on a Friday, and then all the boys from Fredericton were wanting to copy my setup for the next day. Anyway,
exactly.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. So okay, so the main we're qualifying. We raced 3 times to get into the mains.
Yeah, that's right. You have 3 chances to get into the fastest group.
This is what. So wow. Okay.
Yep.
And what's
the TQ is the fastest car of the day in that grouping.
Okay.
And when we do a point series, if you're a TQ, which meant that you were the fastest car in that group, we have points. A TQ is worth 2 extra bonus points. So if you got TQ but you finished like second, you could still have the most points in the day because of your bonus points that you got for being the fastest car. So it's a separate little prize for TQ.
Very good.
Everybody wants to be TQ because then it's like the bragging rights of being the fastest car, and then you have to follow it up with the win in the final.
Right. I mean, if you TQ and then don't win the A main,
it's a disappointment.
Yeah, for sure it would be. I imagine it happens sometimes.
Oh yeah, it happens lots of times.
Yeah, there you go. Okay.
Yep. In amongst the day, there'll be a canteen, George. Every track will have some kind of barbecue and pop and chips and those type of things at lunchtime. So you don't need to bring a cooler, but if you want to bring some snackage, that's up to you. But
yeah,
there's usually food provided at these events.
Cool.
And then at the end of the day, the qualifiers are traditionally 5 minutes long. So you do 15 minutes of qualifying between each one of the races. And then the final will be more than that. We're about 7 minutes, but sometimes it depends on how George is feeling that day. Sometimes he'll bump the timer up to 8. Depends on how well the day went. With the LiPo batteries, runtime is not an issue, so it really doesn't matter what he sets the timer to. It's just how long are you going to hold on to that precious first, or how long do you have to overtake?
Runtime is not an issue. I don't understand what that means. That's such a foreign concept. We were like trying to get our gearing so we could get like good punch off the line, good top end, but still make 5 minutes. Or 4 minutes. Yeah, we'd still gear for 5.
They were only 4-minute races.
They were 4-minute races. Laughable by today's standards. You did what for 4 minutes?
Yep. I remember back in the 80s when I raced in those other races, my car would drive 4 minutes and 20 seconds. And after the end of that last lap, it stopped.
Oh, man. No wasted time.
Nope. No, if you had to go around one extra lap, you had to use part throttle because you couldn't use it all. You wouldn't get around.
Crazy.
Yeah, and now it's not a concern.
No, I guess not. I mean, I didn't. The couple of times I've taken the short course truck out to the parking lot, and when I took this out for the first time, I didn't kill the battery. I mean, it was still so cold when I got this out for the first time that I had to stop driving because my fingers were freezing on the transmitter.
Yeah.
So the battery just kept going.
Now at the end of one of these race days, and it's somewhat of a tradition for off-road. It doesn't typically happen indoor and on-road, but there'll be door prizes and giveaways for
Huh.
in these series races. So George will have asked Great Hobbies or Freedom Hobbies or one of the different sign companies or something, and there'll be some kind of giveaways at the end of it. Now these giveaways, as I say, they're not traditionally done in indoor races, but outdoors it seems to be the thing. So
Well, that's a nice little bonus.
yep. So you might get a $10 gift certificate at the local hobby shop, or last year I think they were giving out $25 for the local shops. It was actually good. So there you go. You could buy your set of tires for your next race. Tire sponsored.
Yeah, there you go. And what's a race cost? Are they the same everywhere we go, regardless of the track? Or are they set by the track owner?
It's set by the track owner, but for the Maritime Series, it's fixed. And I think because we fixed it, the track owners also carry that forward. So typically it is $25 for the first car that you have.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's $20 for the first car and then $5 for the second, and a $30 maximum no matter how many cars you have.
Damn, that's only $5 more than a match that I do now. And I only get to use one firearm per match.
Yeah, it is interesting that way.
And so this is going into the track owner's money or pocket. Like he uses this to maintain his program, pay for overhead and awards. Are there awards as well at the end?
Yep. Typically at each one of these tracks, it depends on the race. Any of these trophy races, there will be awards for the A main group for sure. And then for the Maritime Series, I had awards for every group, top 3 in every grouping. So the C main would have top 3, B main top 3, A main top 3. Everybody, if you won your race, you got a plaque for winning your grouping.
Very cool.
So, yep, win the race you're in.
Deal.
And you got to, yep. So that's how a typical day would have gone.
And so one major race per track per month?
It typically is.
Yeah.
So the Capellet track, just to give a little backstory, it had served as a one race per month series. That's how George had organized it since he brought his track in. So that is always a trophy race. So typically the other track owners will work around his schedule because his are all trophy races. And then for the Maritime Series, I laid that on top of like George's series, so we don't conflict with his. But that is a series of 4 races at the 4 separate tracks, basically one a month. And because there's a few races going on, we use that event schedule on the Maritime RC website to keep track that we're not going to overlap. And we try to leave 2 weeks between each trophy race. So
pay periods are 2 weeks. That makes sense.
Yeah. So it's and it's we don't want people traveling back to back. And if it were to rain on the races are usually Saturdays. If it were to rain and you were all packed up and going to go to Capellet and it was raining, it will be scheduled for Sunday.
Okay. That's cool.
So typically we try to get it done that weekend.
I much prefer events on Saturday. I really do.
Yeah.
I hate driving home on a Sunday when I've got to work the next day.
Yeah. That's our feeling in general. But because during the summer there's so many different events, if we carry one forward, it's a nightmare to try to reschedule it in somewhere.
Yeah, for sure. So you see that, Adriel? If the RC races are every 2 weeks, as long as I can get the RC World and the IPSC World to coordinate the schedule, I could be doing something every weekend, right? Racing.
Be dry firing right now too.
Oh,
become a master at dry fire.
I could have been spending all of this pandemic dry firing, but instead I chose to build toy cars.
Yeah.
So I haven't touched a handgun in weeks.
Yeah. But it's
Okay.
fun. It's a different thing. It's a for myself. I like the idea of the mechanical aspect of it and the competition aspect of it because you have a bit of play with either aspect. Sometimes you can
Mhm.
be a little better at tuning, but not as good a driver. Sometimes you're a better driver, but not as good at tuning. So there's that's what I like about that. So I usually leave my cars fairly general and just try to drive them.
Mm.
that's my my angle for setup rather than try to perfectly fine tune it because the next track or day will be different and it'll all change.
Right. Now, I wondered about that. I mean, I was going to um, run the cars with the box set up until you and I spoke, and then we've made some minor changes already to the cars, and as you know, some parts come in to help increase the traction and stuff like that. Is this advisable? Like, do I want to make these changes right off of the bat before I start driving, or like are the changes that we made like basically you just got to do them regardless, do them and then learn to drive with that?
Yeah, you've made bread and butter type of changes for the
Okay,
track surface.
all right.
So so each track surface, you can tune these cars. If you look at them, I'll just put one here. Every little link on this is adjustable. Every little collar you see, you can adjust ride height. You can adjust links. There's like little holes, I guess, in the top of this little guy where you can adjust that link position. So there's umpteen adjustments on that.
Whatever you can
But
do to tune a real race car, camber, caster, toe, weight distribution, you can do to these cars. They are
yeah,
not toys. They are finely tuned race machines that have been developed since the 60s to what they are today. And there's a tremendous amount of engineering that goes into them. They may look like toy cars, but the engineering and that's gone into these to make them fully adjustable and tunable is would just blow your mind.
yeah, yeah, it certainly does. And as I mentioned earlier, you can buy software that will help you tune them to the nth degree
Of
because
course.
you can simulate all those adjustments. You can tune that car on the bench and know exactly what it will do when it goes onto a track.
Wow.
It's
Now,
crazy.
how much of that do you do? Do you use that software quite a bit, or is it like you used it for a while and the novelties wore off and you don't need it anymore? Where are you with that sort of stuff?
Um, I tend to use it when I'm about to make big changes,
Okay.
but it's not something you do all the time. It's something I do in big spurts. It's like, okay, I need more rear traction. What can I do? And then all these permutations and combinations come out, and you find something that, oh, this is an improvement over the last, and then you'll go and try that.
Hmm.
But
See,
then once you find something, you'll stay with it.
this reminds me a lot of rifle shooting. So Adriel's been reloading ammunition here in the background all night, and I'm also a hand loader. And the thing that I love about hand loading, there's two things I love about hand loading: data and variables. We collect the data, we control the variables, we get a better product. We get better results downrange. But if you can't shoot, you can control all the variables. You can be meticulous in your preparation of your components. You can prepare the components. You can use the best components. You can just be phenomenal in that respect and produce just um, world level competition match grade ammunition. But if you can't perform on the line, if you can't perform under the stress of competition, it doesn't matter how good that ammunition is. It doesn't matter all the data you collected. It doesn't matter how well you prepared those components to build that perfect ammunition. Then you still have to go deliver. Well, the RC car is the same thing. The RC car is
Yeah,
incredibly tunable. We've got these setup sheets where we can record our current setup. We can make changes and record that. That's the data. We can collect the data. The variable is one change at a time. I run the car around the track, and I find that it's a little loose, and I want to increase the traction, see if I can and get better lap times. Well, I'm not going to change two things and go and try it again. I'm going to change one. And if my lap times got better, I'm going to note that change. If they didn't get better, I'm going to undo what I did. The data is recording what we do on the setup sheet, and the variables are all the different parts of the car that are tunable. The ride height, the oil that's in the shocks, the size of the pistons that are in the shocks, the camber, the caster, the toe, this new thing I never heard of, anti-squat, Ackerman,
Yeah, Ackerman. It's
Ackerman.
a steering
Yeah, like
Ackerman. Yeah.
it's something
Yeah.
they improved on the like. So I'm a savage for this stuff. I'm like a big sponge. I want to soak all this stuff up. Like I said, you're my new Mo. I'm trying to learn all these new tuning things from you and YouTube, um, so that I can be ahead of the game compared to the other rookies when I get to the track for the first time.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And it sounds like you're doing the right stuff.
well, what else should I be doing? Like I've picked your brain, Jesse's brain, Stefan's brain, anybody that'll talk to me. Like, what do I need? What do I need to order? What do I need to order? And it's been frustrating a few times where I've ordered, like, there's some stuff that you guys take for granted, and you've been doing it for so long, so it doesn't always occur to you to, it's like, oh yeah, crap, he needed this sort of thing, right? Like, um, I didn't even know these things didn't come with wheels and tires. I totally forgot. And so one of my kits arrived and
Yeah.
I had no wheels and tires. I was like, oh man, Stefan's like, oh, I feel bad. I should have told you. Well, you know what, man? I can read. I'm a teacher. I know how to read. And I'm just so hyper, and my ADD is off the hook sometime. And I didn't read all of the description of, included in the kit required and stuff like that. But,
Yeah.
so I've been asking you
It,
guys, like, what do I need? And, poor, hobby probably both loves and hates me, because I'll place an order and a day later I'm placing another order, and a day later I'm placing another order to keep finding stuff that I need. So
yeah.
okay.
I know it begins a little frustrating that to really save the best shipping, you should have ordered it all at once, but you didn't know to
Exactly.
order it all at once. You only knew what you knew at the time.
Well, yeah, here's how. So you know what I do, right? $100 is free shipping. So every freaking time I place an order, it's $100. So,
Yeah.
all right. So
Yeah.
got the cars built. Talk to you a little bit. What do I do next? I mean, I can't get on the track. What can I be doing to prepare for the upcoming season? Oh, your wire. You gotta flick your wire or something on your headset.
It's not working.
Perfect. Nope, good. It was just, there was some bad static there for a second, but it's clear now.
Oh, well, maybe it's a switch that's on my headset.
Oh, could be, but it's good. Yeah. So what can I be doing right now because again, I'm getting into this to race.
Yeah.
Everything, and I want to. Not only do I want to race, I want a podium. Everything I do, I'm a super competitive guy. I'm easy to get
You want to
along
knock
with.
me?
Anybody,
You're gonna pass me on the way by is what you want to do.
as fast as possible. Yes. How do I dominate you quickly?
Yep.
Yeah. So what can I be doing?
The next thing that you need is wheel time.
Okay.
And just like airplanes had simulators, cars have a simulator. It's a VRC, virtual RC. And what you do is you use your own radio controller that you would use to control one of these real cars,
Mm-hmm.
and you get a USB adapter and you plug
Yeah, I
the
see
adapter.
Stefan has been posting that stuff.
Yeah, and what that trains you is wheel time, getting
Okay.
used to the controller. Now
Okay.
you're not because it's simulated physics. You're not going to get exactly what the grip level would be, but you'll get close, and you'll get
Okay.
used to steering with the controller and transitioning from throttle to brake because it's all on your trigger finger.
Mm. I gotta get those programming cards. I've looked at how the Hobby Wing is programmed without a programming card. You got to know Morse code. Like, I don't know how
Yeah.
these guys do it. They make it look easy in a video, but because I don't have the brake that I should have on these things. And
Yeah, I completely agree. And if I had known you didn't have a programming card, I would have said, when you buy an ESC, you buy a programming card.
right off of the bat, yeah. So
and you buy all the same brand ESC, so that programming card works on them all.
yes, all I've been doing is Hobby Wing, except there was one that a Reedy. It's probably not even a Reedy, but the one that came in the box with my my RTR Pro SC10. that has radio electronics. But how bad is that Fly Sky transmitter and receivers I bought? You know, they say if it seems too good to be true, it probably is. Like I ordered another receiver today from Canada Hobbies. It was $16. I mean, that's
Yeah.
less than a goldfish, and you don't feed a goldfish because it's cheaper to just buy a new one.
What you may find as you get used to it is that you don't feel as connected to the car as you should. Like when you
Really?
turn left, it will turn left a couple of milliseconds after you want it to,
Oh, okay.
and a couple of milliseconds at 40 kilometers an hour is quite far.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll be anticipating, like you'll be turning before you want to. It'll be a little different style. That's what I think you'll notice.
Oh.
Or you may not notice, but that's what I notice about them.
Well, you'll notice it right now. I don't know the difference because I haven't had any wheel time in years.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. So for you, you're gonna get controller in hand, get on the stand, try to keep it between the navigational beacons.
Yeah, my plan in the beginning is to be smooth. You can't win a race on your roof, and
Wow,
probably the
that
first. What's that?
that is good advice. I I would recommend that consistency over speed.
Yeah,
I
learn the
mean,
corner.
I've won way more races through consistency than I ever was through being fast.
Hmm.
It was- And the lap counter software that we use it at all the tracks. We share a subscription across all the tracks. If we're nothing, we're coordinated.
That's good.
So we use the same software across all our tracks. All the results from all the races we've done with the software are uploaded to the internet so you can check out your results,
Mm-hmm.
and it will show your consistency in in the results that are posted.
I've got 2
And
transponders coming now.
yep, and inevitably you will notice that the person at the top of the list has a much higher consistency than the one at the bottom.
Exactly, right? It's 32, 32, 5, 33, 32, not,
Yeah.
32, 48.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you see somebody with it, and what I watch for is if you see somebody with very high consistency, but they don't have the fastest lap, that's a person who outdrove you,
Mm-hmm.
right? They just took it slow and steady, and they made no mistakes. They might not have been as fast, but you know, they did it lap over lap. Where somebody, you'll see other people might have a fast lap but have lower consistency.
Oh, I
Uh,
guarantee it's easier to pass somebody on the roof than it is to pass somebody in a corner.
yeah, exactly.
So,
Yeah, a lot of the off-road racing is driving within yourself.
mm,
It's quite a it's a bit of an art. I find myself driving at 95%
okay.
because if you drive at 100, you'll get into some problems. And if you're in the lead, you drive at 90% because you're kind of covering a lead.
Mm, you want to stay there.
Yeah. And
Okay.
you don't want to introduce any inconsistency. You want to just keep doing what you're doing, cornering when you're cornering, and speed will come with consistency. So focus on that. So you don't need the fastest motor there ever was. You can go with the slower one and just work on consistency.
Adriel, does any of this advice sound familiar?
Yeah, sounds the same thing as what I do in 3-gun, and yeah.
Yeah.
I don't
And
go to 90. I just always go at 95%, but I never go at 100 because at 100 was where
yep,
uh
you don't
shit
stick
goes
the
wrong.
landing. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have an expression in our game, Greg. You can't miss fast enough to win. And in racing, it's probably you can't crash fast enough to win. So if you're shooting
Yeah,
fast but you're not hitting your targets, what's the point? If you're driving fast but spending half of your time on your roof, what's the point?
yeah, exactly.
So,
Yep, consistency is the thing.
all right.
Yep. So
So,
we've pretty much organized across all our tracks to use that stuff, and it really helps out racers. At one time, I was like really focused on consistency, and there
mhm,
was one track that I went to that they kept the same layout for like 2 years. So I was following your methodology, where I would make a change and then do my qualifier, and then I would make another change and do my qualifier, and then I would go back that night and say, okay, the first change I made, let's take a look at the consistency from that and the speed from that. And then I had built like 6 to 8 months of inventory, tracking every change I made and then getting the actual numbers from the software. And I could see I was a tenth faster with this change. So then I
Numbers don't
kept that
lie.
change.
Numbers don't lie. And having that lap system everywhere helps us track our data.
Yep. Yep. So I found out with this pinion, I was a tenth faster. And then I made another change. And I said, with this change, I was a tenth faster. And by
Perfect.
the end of it, the tenths turned to seconds. And through like a 6 to 8 month period, I went from maybe, it's when I first started. So I was probably way down in the pack till I was on the podium with the other guys, and they couldn't believe it.
Yeah, amazing. You got to
Yeah.
know what to manage. You need to have a plan. You need to know how to implement that plan. If you don't know what your goals are, then you don't have a plan to achieve those goals. And so you got to find something to practice and find something to improve on. We tell people, like, just don't go to the range and turn money into noise by just throwing ammo down range for fun. You need to ammo costs money. So when you go to the range, go with a practice plan. When I go to the track, I need to go to the track with a purpose. I need to know why I'm there. What am I working on today? Am I working on jumps? Am I working on cornering? Am I working on exiting? Like, you know what I mean? I don't even know what I have to work on yet, but I know I got to work on something when I get there. I know I need to make the most of my time. It's an hour just to get there. So,
one useful tool that you could use if you're there by yourself is to put a little GoPro in a corner somewhere that you're having trouble, and then have it film you going through that section, and then you can go back and look and say, oh, well, I wasn't doing this, or I should have done that, or that's an
perfect.
invaluable tool.
Nice.
A lot of our races, we video them. Like for sure, we video them in our St. John Club because we're practicing to race is kind of our thing. So we video them and we post them on YouTube, and then you can analyze your race and say, I thought I was faster in this corner, and then you can look and say, well, why was I doing that? Or if you crashed, like if you tried to pass and it didn't work out, you could look at that attempt and say, that was a bad attempt. I started too far back, and why did I try to jump in there? So if you can video it, that is an invaluable tool. Almost like you said that you sent videos to the other fella to say how you were loading or shooting or whatever
ahead of time. Yeah. And I didn't know what I should be looking at that time, but he did. So I was sending him the video to analyze it. And I will be going to the track with tripod in hand, no doubt. So one final thing, and then we'll let you go because we've been going for quite a while. This isn't a microcast. There's nothing micro about this anymore, except the size of the cars. That's the only micro part of this cast.
Yeah, that's right. I figured it was going to be a long discussion when you said, let's try to wrap up RC in the Maritimes in a microcast. I was thinking, wow, that's a big topic.
Yeah, no, sorry, pal. It's not going to happen. Not. So the crowd, the atmosphere, the kind of camaraderie, what is it like? Like, I came from archery where it was very formal and almost stuffy. And then I remember going to my first IPSC match, and when the match was done, I kept hearing people say, "Is the range closed? Is the range closed?" And I'd been on the range plenty of times and never heard anyone ever ask the question, "Is the range closed?" And I didn't understand why. And I had my back turned to the crowd, and I was putting away my equipment, and somebody said, "Yep, the range is closed." And then I turned around, everybody had a beer in their hand, and that was like, all right, the guns are all locked up and put away, and the match is done, and now we can have a cold one while we go through the results. And there was a lot of shit talk, a lot of trash talk, a lot of but all in good spirited fun, all in jest. You know what I mean? A little bit of psychological warfare from time to time. It's a competitive sport. But if a part breaks in your gun, 3 people are throwing parts at you. You know what I mean? Like, everybody is helping I didn't bring enough ammo. Here's ammo. Like, maybe you give me back, maybe you don't. I don't care. Go finish your match. You know what I mean? What's the RC community like? Is it a big family? Is it full of drama queens and prima donnas? Everybody's got a sponsor. What's the crowd like?
I think you would find the crowd very similar.
Okay.
What it tends to be is a big family. A lot of information is shared, I guess.
Hmm.
It in I'll speak to the St. John Club because our club is almost designed to be practice to race club.
Nice.
So in there after every meeting we go down to Wendy's afterwards. There's a Wendy's probably 10 kilometers away, and that's where we go for 2 hours to shoot the shit. I don't know what Wendy's thinks about all these people sitting there talking about it, but that's what we do in our group. The St. John group, we traveled together up to these events, fit together, help each other out constantly, and and the same people will help across clubs too. So I think you'll find that kind of sharing nature, the camaraderie nature, that it's there. It's something that we've had to work at because I have been in clubs that were also the complete opposite, where it's very competitive in nature and they wouldn't share, I got this edge and I'm not going to tell anybody about it,
Oh, yeah.
and it could be this like very secret squirrel type of atmosphere. But I find now it's very open and very, it's a good place to go. And if somebody new shows at the track, because inevitably somebody will show up that's new. There's always lots of people to help. Usually somebody new, they don't know who to ask, or they just sit, they're under their little tent, or they don't even have a tent, and they're just sitting at their table trying to figure out what we just went through when we talked about what happens on a race day. But usually somebody will go over and talk to them and say, oh, we noticed that it's not doing this over this part of the track. Just turn this dial a few turns and you'll be good to go. And then they make that change, they're good to go, they come back, they got something to chat to each other about, say, oh yeah, I made that change, it was awesome, and I noticed your
Perfect.
car. And then you get a friend at the track, and typically what you want is a friend in the corner marshal area, so you can say, oh, which area did you think you're going to have problems with? Oh, that's where I'll stand for you.
Where are you going to crash for a lot? That's where I'll wait.
Yeah, like
That's awesome.
if there's a rough part of the track and you think, oh, I'm having troubles with that, you get your friends in the marshals. But no,
Perfect.
I found that it's a very good group. It's something that we've worked at, I'd say, as a committee with all the track owners, but it's really really turned out nice.
Awesome. Cool. Well, I'm very much looking forward to meeting you in person, getting out there, get some track time, and meeting all the different racers in the community and learning. It's going to be a definite. I'm going to be on a steep learning. Well, I don't know if it's going to be terribly steep because I'm not completely new to the hobby, but I still got to learn to drive and got to learn to tune and got to learn to do it. Well, should I just leave all the other cars home and just take one? Because here I am with two different trucks and a four-wheel drive buggy and a two-wheel drive buggy. I'm even building a carpet car for indoor season, and it's not even outdoor season yet. Like, am I doing myself a disservice? Like, for if in the gun world, if you had four guns and changed guns every match, I would be up one side of you and down the other. I'd be like, no, dude, you've got to master the fundamentals of marksmanship, and you should do it with one gun. Beware of the man with one gun because he's really good with it. That's why that is an expression. So, should I just pick one of my vehicles and master it before I want to play with all my toys, or what? What's your opinion on that?
My opinion of it is I'll tell you what I do, and you can infer my opinion. I use, out of the 6 classes that we race, I race 2. And everybody in the St. John Club races 2. And it's not because we can't buy 6.
No,
It's
no,
because we're good. It's because we're good at 2.
gotcha.
So if you look at the podiums, there will be somebody from the St. John Club on it because we're good at what we do. We're the guy that shows up with the one gun, and we're good with it.
Oh, you're the Restigush of the RC world. When
Yeah.
me and the guys from my club roll into a club, we're here for your women and your medals. That's what we say.
Yeah, but for sure well, what happens if you because they're easy to get, they're a few $100 and you'll have a car, but then you get into to the maintenance of it, you'll get into replacing tires. If something breaks on it, now you're into an awful mess because you're into trying to repair something while you're preparing for the next one, while you're trying to charge something else. It'll unravel pretty quick.
Mm. Okay.
Yeah.
So, all
Yeah,
right.
my advice to any new racer is get like 2 cars max and get good at them. Learn, like I've had this little buggy, this guy here. I've had this probably 4 years and I'm still not done tuning it. There's so much to try and to test that if I had 6 of those, I'd probably be nowheres along.
Mm.
But
And I
but
mean,
but
everything I build, I customize. Most of the firearms in my collection, I built, and everything has been tinkered with, modified, changed, like changed out the stock, changed out the scope, changed out the trigger group. You know what I mean? Like they're all competition guns, so they've all been tuned.
yep.
And this RC thing, same thing. You build it and then you tune it. Oh, titanium turnbuckles are next. Oh, titanium screw kit. Oh, different wheels, different arms, hard arms, soft. It never stops. And I'm a
That's
tinkerer,
right.
always have been. I love it. So yeah.
Yeah, it's easy to get lost, and especially if they're too dissimilar.
Mm.
Like you have a two-wheel drive buggy and you have that stadium. Those two will have very similar handling characteristics.
That was my next
Uh,
question. Do I go stadium truck and short course truck, or do I go stadium truck and two wheel drive buggy?
Either the thing with the short course, you didn't show that one, but it has a much bigger body on the top of it to cover the
Hmm.
wheels.
Hmm.
The weight of the body affects its handling quite a bit, so it won't react the same as like these small bodied vehicles. So
Mm.
if you wanted to have like consistency vehicle to vehicle, I'd go with the two smaller bodied ones. Now
Okay.
I personally have a two-wheel drive buggy, and then I like the other end of the pendulum is this four-wheel drive short course. That's the other class that I race. So they handle completely different, but it's for that tuning challenge that I'm doing that for.
Yeah. I'll see. I've got a proper body coming for the short course truck, the one that you recommended yesterday. I also have um, M3s and M4s whole shots coming for it. Um, I've been working on freeing up the suspension components and the steering components and rebuilding the shocks, and I'm spending time to get it ready to race. And the problem I'm going to face, Greg, is I want to play with all my toys. Like I've got the stadium truck and the two wheel drive truck and the short course and the four wheel drive car. The four wheel drive cars, from what I'm understanding, is really no point in taking it anywhere with me other than Blackfly this year. Um,
Yeah, that car would be a wild card in my mind
yeah.
because one of the written rules that we have is if there's four of the same vehicle, then they'll put it together in a group to race together. But if there's only three, then they won't.
No problem. So I should bring it
Because
with me
every
just in case.
yeah, yeah, that's right. It wouldn't hurt to bring it.
Maybe I'll alternate. I'll always run the two wheel drive car every race, and I can alternate between the stadium truck and the short course sometimes.
I think the stadium truck is a good bet. They're easy to drive because of the larger tires. They have bigger suspension,
Mm.
and they're fun. That if there's somebody that's starting out, I'd recommend. Now that is part of the list of classes that we offer, that's a great starting class. Before I would have recommended a two-wheel drive short course because it's very similar, big tires, and it's low cost. It's something good to start with. But now that you have both of those, I would kind of focus on that stadium and then bring in the other ones as whatever seems to kind of match the handling. Don't go too far away. And then, by the end of the summer, you might be to your full complement. You got the stadium under control, the buggy under control, and you got the whole fleet at the track.
Yeah.
But I
All
wouldn't do
right.
that day one. You'll get overwhelmed.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I'm not gonna grow or learn. So, okay, I'm gonna start off with stadium and two-wheel drive buggy. That's it. Everything else will stay home for a while. I mean, I'll take them to Blackfly just to drive them on the
Practice.
track. Say I
Yeah.
did. You know what I mean? But
Yep.
I'll practice with the stadium truck and the two-wheel drive truck. That'll be my
Yeah,
main focus.
Yeah, they'll have very similar characteristics with the truck being easier to drive.
So the brass C block and D block, do I want those for the truck too?
Probably. They would have similar handling characteristics. They're going to react similar to whatever tuning you do to them.
Shocks are already in the rear. I did the switch on the B6 that we talked about.
Yeah. Yeah, with the surfaces on the tracks, as I was saying, but the other people would know, is that they're very hard packed surfaces, almost like a granite countertop, and then sprinkle a light coat of flour on the top. That's the surface. That's the surface that we run on.
So we're on a gym floor. Great.
Yeah. So just envision that, and then try to go very fast and jump over jumps and doubles and stuff on that. So landing is very slippery.
What could go wrong? Awesome. All right, Greg, we're going to wrap it up. That was a long microcast. I can't thank you enough for making time to come on and educate me, entertain the listeners, educate them a little bit. Who knows? Maybe we've planted the seed and there's a gun guy out there right now shopping at Great Hobbies for an RC. Who knows?
Yeah, and check out the mrcr.ca site. We have our events all listed and links to every club in the Maritimes on there. So It's a good place to start for your basic info.
Cool. And we've got listeners coast to coast and a couple of different countries and stuff. And same thing, Google RC Racing, fill in the blank of your country name. And ton of stuff on YouTube.
That's right. It's worldwide. This is a worldwide hobby.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. The podcast that I'm listening to, the host is from the Dominican, maybe the No Name podcast. You listen to that one?
Yes. Yep.
No Name RC podcast. Yeah. So anyway, all right. That's enough, Greg. Thank you very much. And I'll be bothering you again tomorrow, I'm sure.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that you had me on. Hopefully you got a few listeners that have found this interesting.
Oh, I'm sure they did. We'll get some feedback on it. I'll let you know.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, Greg. Have a good night.
Thanks.
Yep, you too. Have a good night, guys.
Okay. Bye.